sini kalau tiba-tiba mikrofonnya mati karena ini kayaknya sudah low bed ya. The holding of election in Indonesia is legitimate in Chapter 7B of Article 2020 of the Third Amendment to the Undang-Undang Dasar 45, containing regarding the provision for holding election, which is every 5 years to elect the member of the House of Representatives Indonesia, the Regional Representative Council, the House of Representatives Regional, and also to elect the President and Vice President and Regional Executive Board. The general election is held by General Election Commission, or KPU, the call in Indonesia. Furthermore, the implementation of democratic election become essential with application of 5 conditions. They are, firstly, election must be competitive. And number 2, election should be held periodically. Number 3, election must be inclusive. Number 4, voter must be given the freedom to consider and discuss alternatives to their choice in an atmosphere of freedom. Not under pressure, operation, and have access to extensive information. And the last, electoral organizer should be unbiased and independent. The existence of such values must be respected and guaranteed by the electoral organization. This is important because the success of value of the organizers in the achieving democratic election will pose problems. The existence of election as a routine agenda in Indonesia for any change in the leadership of the country must have direct implication for the dynamic of policy and regulations surrounding the conduct of the election. As you know, the general election rules change every year before the election are held. This can be seen for the amendment of the General Election Law, which were re-regulation in Act number 42 of 208 on the election of the President and Vice President, amendment by Act number 15 of the 2011 on the organization of the general election. This law was last amended with Act number 1 of 2022 on the amendment of the law of 7 of 2017 of general election. In the electoral process in Indonesia, we know there are thresholds that must be met by the political parties or candidates who will be elected. Election thresholds are one of the technical instruments of general election in countries that implement proportional election system, including Indonesia. There are 3 known thresholds in Indonesia: electoral threshold, parliamentary threshold, and presidential threshold. Commonly defined as percentage of voting or minimum seat acquisition. The basis of threshold provision is carried out once the political party meet the criteria of political party to become an electoral participant and make registration in accordance with Article 173 of Act 27 year 2017. One of threshold that has so far continued to be subject to turmoil proven by the testing of legislative regulation before the Constitutional Court is the application of the presidential threshold in Article 222 of the Act number 7 of 2017. It states, candidates are proposed by political party or association of political parties participating in election that fulfill the requirement of obtaining at least 20% of the number of seats in the House of Representatives of obtain 25% from the valid national votes in the previous year election of member of the House of Representatives. According to the provision of Article 222, it can be understood that only the parties that have obtained of minimum of 20% of the number of seats in the House of obtain 25% or valid votes nationally. However, if they do not have the vote to meet the threshold, then the political parties will not want to coalition to meet the limit in order to be able to nominate the president or vice president. So that requirement is met in less 20% or seat in a chamber or 25% of a valid vote nationwide. This is justified under Article 222 of this law as well as Article 223 of Act number 7 of 2017, which says political parties may make agreement with other political parties to merger in proposing candidates couple. As is well known, this issue is test of setting up presidential thresholds continue to be repeated, especially in the year of the election. The norm in section 222 has been touched 27 times in the 5 sentences, and the rest in unacceptable. If we review the jurisprudence, the ruling of the Constitutional Court maintain that presidential threshold is constitutional rule. On the other hand, although 3 has been a ruling of the matter, there are still various submission of tests of the issue of presidential threshold as a form of trusting claim that from the people's strategic agenda against oligarchic dominance. It can be seen when the alternative petitioner filed this petition with the country constitutional body, the MK. In fact, the threshold lawsuit this time, the scale is widening, and that to the extent of country. The Indonesian diaspora in 12 countries joined the lawsuit. The diaspora movement started the United States, Europe, and the Middle East, Asia Pacific, and Australia. The community has a wide range of social background, ranging for working in the UN headquarters, at the European Parliament office, as entrepreneur professional, private employers, pensioners, and housewives. To migrant workers or the column TKI. Moreover, no democratic country has imposed a threshold on